the board can make itself available through an avenue of things. One thing is we need to start as a Board of Education to not have systematic obstruction in the school system. And what do I mean by that? I mean strategically putting obstacles in place so parents cannot participate in the education of their children, not having a voice, locking them out of public meetings, obstructing them, limiting numbers who could come into an open meeting. That stuff's going to end. And I'm going to tell you, we need to post curriculum on the website. Parents need to see full transparency of what is being taught to their children. We need to have more parent involvement. And I'm going to tell you, parent involvement will improve and increase when we have a strong board that listens to them, and they're just so beat down. They're tired of this mess. And so if we remove those obstacles and we listen and we include them, there's hope. They're going to have hope and they're going to be excited. Monthly meetings at night. Having monthly meetings at night when parents are not working. And that is going to increase participation. Yeah, some parents work at night, but the majority of parents work during the day and they will be there at night. What's important is a board member that goes around to the towns within the county to hear what the local town councils and commissions have to say so that they're involved, because they're closest to their constituents. They know and they can relay that, and that communication is absolutely key. Our rural areas throughout the community, all of like Sharptown and the west side, we have all these areas in the community that are left out there. It's those people out there. All right, I'm going to tell you, this is the season of the underdog. The underdog has been kicked to the curb, and we need to serve them. They are our clients, and we need to reach out to them, and we need to serve them. They need to be included. We need to outreach. It is their day. We, the people, we represent them and not the House.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lombardo, we'll just start with you and go back down the line. So question number 4, how will you as a board member work with state and local officials, our senators, delegates, the executive, county council on issues pertaining to education?
Okay, I've already been doing this for about 3 years, actively working with the county council, working with our state legislators, lower shore delegation to try to establish, bridge that gap between the school system and local government. We have no transparency, we have no accountability. Some people will argue, well, we put reports up on the school's website. There's some, but not enough. Budget items are hidden. We don't know. Money's moved around. There's waste. There's all sorts of things going on. Now, the county council, who passes the money through the school system, they need to look after the county as a whole. If we bridge that gap and allow them to oversee things, and yeah, we're the overseers as an elected board, but they still need to have skin in the game to hold accountability for those as a whole, as an entire county. It is absolutely crucial. As far as legislators go, we have worked to establish accountability to be included in existing financial legislation. We're the only county that's not included. They've worked to obstruct us from the bottom up. We need to have accountability, and if it's not going to get done in Annapolis, we're going to do it right here. We're going to do it. And those that make excuses and do all sorts of things to say we can't, I can tell you, I will show you otherwise. Thank you.
Well, the first thing you do is you ask nicely, you are polite, and you say, hey, we're all about the kids. This is about kids. This isn't about my ego. This isn't about your ego. This is about our children. So we are all in agreement that we need to take care of our children. So let's all work together for the common good of our children. And if I'm open with you and you're open with me, we're not going to have a problem, because I'm going to play it straight with you, 100%. I'm not going to hide anything from you. And if I'm having an issue, I'm going to bring it to you and say, can you help me with this? And if you can't help me with this because it's just not within your power to help me, and you say, I'm going to send you to somebody else, then I'm going to go to that person. Because I'm about getting it done for our children, for our parents, for our taxpayers, for our citizens. Because the kids that we are working for, we on this board are their voice. This is, I think, one thing that gets lost in all of this, is that this Board of Education is the closest thing kids have to an actual voice. Yeah, adults vote for us, yeah. But we are the voice of the children. So we need to act like the adults and work for these kids because they are the beneficiaries of what we do. And we need to put our own egos and our own hurts and everything else aside and say, we're going to do this because it's for the betterment of our community and our children.
I believe right now the board meets with the county council members quarterly, and I think that should be more often, even if it's on a Zoom call with a small group. I know they said that they don't have time to meet that often, but I think it needs to be more than a quarterly meeting. We need to be able to discuss proposed legislation and education bills that might affect the students. And local officials need to be able to see why we are asking for things, so have them physically coming to the school to show why we're requesting something is important. That'll help them understand why it is that we're asking for it.
I think ideally the Board of Ed should do everything to resolve the issue at the board level. It might be through smaller meetings with certain board members, teachers, and parents if needed, but I think it's key to keep it local. And if it can't be resolved there, I would certainly think that the county council and the county executive could help with their legislative powers. You know, and there may be certain times when you need to go past all that. You need to contact your delegate or your senators and ask for flexibility in the interpretation of that particular situation. Most people think legislation is written in stone, when in reality there is flexibility. I actually met with Mary Beth Carozza on Monday, and she reassured me of this and said nothing is impossible. It may not be easy, but it's not impossible, and legislation can be changed.
I've learned a lot of valuable techniques while I was in the military, instructions that not only helped me, but helped the men that worked underneath of me. One of the most valuable that I've learned is that in order to have a successful operation, you've got to establish effective communication between all parties involved. I've been working for years with many of our people in public office, right from our federal council, our congressmen, down to our legislators, our senators, our county council people, county executive, sheriff, and I have no problem at all reaching out to them, just call them up on the phone and talking to them about a problem or something that I'm going to introduce to them. So we have a lot of off-scheduled meetings between us and these groups of people. This is a way that you can move items along. Thank you.
We already meet quarterly with the county council, and our superintendent meets monthly with the county executive. During sessions, I receive weekly updates from Senator Carozza, who lets me know just what is going on in education in the state Senate. I have repeatedly asked for 4 years for Delegate Anderton's office to send me weekly updates. I have never ever received anything from him. I want to, I've got a little time here. We've talked about financial literacy, and people seem to think, and I agree with it, that it's very important to have it in the school. But having worked with curriculum and state mandates, I know only too well, when something comes in, something has to go out. And no one has yet told me what you're going to take out of the curriculum when you put the financial literacy in. Let me give you a good example. I have asked repeatedly, my cursive writing, and this has been brought up, why cursive writing is not being taught. A few years ago, the state of Maryland mandated that the time for reading be increased in every elementary school. So when the time for reading was increased, cursive writing went out.
It's been said, but we do meet quarterly in open session with the county council. There's always an agenda of items that go both ways, and we discuss it publicly. I think what we could add to that is a monthly meeting or maybe a quarterly meeting with the county executive as well. I know the superintendent meets with the current county executive, but I've never understood why the board chair, council president, county executive, and superintendent don't meet at least quarterly or monthly to keep that dialogue going, because we could head off a lot of issues if we did it in that form. We can also meet with the lower shore delegation quarterly as well and find out what's blowing around Annapolis, because many times we hear from our folks in the MABE office of the Board of Ed, the Maryland Association of Board of Eds, what legislation is being proposed, and we've never heard of it because we didn't take the time to meet with the legislatures, or they didn't take the time to meet with us. And then finally, on the State Board of Education that hands down a lot of different things that we are supposed to do, we have 2 board members that are here locally. So we should probably think about having a quarterly meeting with those 2 board members and the county council and county executive, and get everybody in the room and say, okay, what's going on at the state level, what's blowing around in Annapolis, how can we be a part of this, and how can we fix things for the best situation for our students in Wicomico County, because we can head off a lot of issues if we did it in that form. We can also meet with the lower shore delegation quarterly as well and find out what's blowing around Annapolis, because many times we hear from our folks in the MABE office of the Board of Ed, the Maryland Association of Board of Eds, what legislation is being proposed, and we've never heard of it because we didn't take the time to meet with the legislatures, or they didn't take the time to meet with us. And then finally, on the State Board of Education that hands down a lot of different things that we are supposed to do, we have 2 board members that are here locally. So we should probably think about having a quarterly meeting with those 2 board members and the county council and county executive, and get everybody in the room and say, okay, what's going on at the state level, what's blowing around in Annapolis, how can we be a part of this, and how can we fix things for the best situation for our students in Wicomico County.
Great, thank you. This last question was what changes should be made on the state and local level regarding public education, but I was reading through I was reading a lot of these questions, and I think a lot of them probably are more important with that. Is that okay if we, if you don't want to skip that question, I don't mind going down. It's just a lot of these questions sort of answer that question specifically. So are you okay with that? Okay.
I think the main change that needs to be made is so much of what's involved in education is state and federally mandated. We need more local board control. I mean, we complain about that all the time. We've been criticized because we didn't buck the state on certain issues, but then you risk some funding issues. We don't want to get into that battle, but that goes back to question 4, where we meet quarterly or monthly with lower shore legislatures. Every county in Maryland is not the same, and one size doesn't fit all for anything, education, employment, whatever. So we need to have more local authority, not just in our county, but every county in the state. And I think if the legislatures and the State Board of Education, the state superintendent moved more in that direction, the community would be a lot happier when they knew when they could come to us and we could say yes or no, not, well, we want to, but the state says we can't do that. So I think more local board control is the way I would fix public education.
You're dreaming, Gene Malone. It's not going to happen. The blueprint for Maryland's future takes away almost any local control. The state BOE is controlling what we do. Governor Hogan vetoed it. The legislature overturned his veto. We will be mandated by the state. Already in place is a position whose only duty is to fill out forms for the blueprint. Already in place is a new supervisor's position, Mr. Don Brady, for community outreach. Big Brother is not only watching us, but mandating what we do. This is the state where Montgomery County PG County, Boulder City County, and Anne Arundel County rules. Get used to it, as I don't see it changing. Under Policy Area 5, under Blueprint, it creates a new accountability and implementation board to plan and monitor implementation of the Blueprint's vision. It creates an expert review team, I love those terms, structured to visit schools, understand implementation on the ground level, and share best practices across the state. Teachers, school leaders, and educational experts, oh yes, will meet with teachers and staff, observe classes, and analyze data to develop recommendations. Local control is not going to happen.
You know, 3 minutes is really totally inadequate. We can talk on this for hours. But, you know, when I start checking into programs, Maryland programs with education, and I start getting vague answers or answers like, well, you can find it here, and if you go there, you might be able to find it there. And you're taking a lot of time trying to find out answers. When I start seeing these smoke screens and mirrors, I start asking more questions. I think we all are familiar with the Social Security system. We're all going to get it someday. Maybe. This is a system where we pay into it, but when Congress needs some extra funding, what do? They stick an IOU into it, and they take money out of it, and it doesn't get paid back. Therefore, we are in trouble. In Maryland, the Savior of Education was going to be the Maryland lottery system and gambling. Well, when you start asking questions about this, boy, you get a lot of smoke screens. Everything is thrown in front of you, so you can't get to the answer, which leads me, personally, just my own opinion, that all the funding coming from this lottery and gambling is not coming to the educational system, but is going into general revenue that supplements the general fund for the education part that the governor supplies us. Then what's left comes to the schools.
30 seconds.
Thank you. So this is an area, you know, we've got to look into. When I get that feeling, I know I'm right. And we need parents. We need parents to get involved. 1 or 2 people can't do it alone. So I'm asking for your help in this. Thank you.
Specifically, curriculum transparency needs to be addressed. It should be easy for a parent to go to the website, look up the grade and the class that your child is in, access the full syllabus and every resource that's going to be used in teaching that class. And it should be available in a timely manner. So if a parent has an issue, they can address it before school starts. Again, specifically, student discipline needs to be addressed. The board needs to protect parental rights in the school system. And we need to make sure that legislators are not passing laws that prevent us from keeping our schools safe. Overall, and I know they've said differently, but overall, the board needs to make sure that state legislation does not bypass the board's local authority. It may be difficult, it may be a fight, but it's not impossible. Thank you.
I feel like more things need to be addressed locally before involving the state. The board has the ability to do a lot more things than I think they've been letting on to. Solving issues in-house will be easier and faster instead of waiting on state officials. And state legislators need to understand that in this county, parents' rights are important to us. And we support education. We do not support bills that will put our children in harm's way. And what works across the bridge will not work here, and it will not work everywhere in the state.
I'm going to stick with what Kristen was going for, but sticking more to the local level. I'm going to tell you the story to answer your question. When I worked in Bedford County, Virginia, we had to upload our syllabus at the beginning of the year, technically the end of the previous year. Every week, I was required to upload my lesson plans for the entire week to my website, along with all of the assignments I was planning on giving my students. I also had a separate website that I was required to upload all of my notes to, so my students could access them online. This whole process took me about an hour at the end of the year because the system was a slightly new one and, well, the computer was old. But weekly it took me 5 minutes. The note system took me anywhere from 10 to 15 depending on how many notes I had. This is a system that can easily be implemented in the county because that would be transparent for parents. A parent could log in and see precisely what their kid was doing for the entire week and see what the notes were in case their kid was sick. Pretty simple. And like I said, did not take me very long once I figured it out, with the new system. So again, the curriculum transparency issue can be resolved at a local level if there's people willing to address it and, well, make people be accountable because it's not complicated. Prior to that, in one of my jobs in Dorchester County, I had to handwrite 30 lesson plans because I had to submit them a week in advance, and I taught 5 classes because we didn't have computers, so I had to handwrite 30 lesson plans for a week. I made it work because I wanted to. So there's my answer to how I would change things locally.
I would like to see the state back off our local authority. We have local authority here as an elected board. If we couldn't have any control over curriculum or anything, we don't need an elected board. It doesn't make any sense. And I can tell you, we have more power than they lead you to believe. We have executive, judicial, and executive powers. No one has that kind of power. Legislative, executive, and judicial. No one has that type of power. And so, we need to exercise and hold the line at the local level. I don't care what happens at the state level. They need to stay in line. And we know what's best for our county. And as far as curriculum goes, guess what? We can pick our own curriculum, despite what some may say. Now, Maryland had a framework and seeds and units that were loaded with CRT and delivered, packaged and delivered, which is known as SEL, or social emotional learning. A real abuse, propaganda, all sorts of political trash. And so, as far as the curriculum goes, the state doesn't mandate curriculum. It can't mandate curriculum. We as an elected board can select the curriculum aligned with traditional teaching. And yes, there's state standards. As long as we meet those standards and we implement the blueprint, yes, we have to do certain things in the blueprint, but they cannot tell us how to get there or what to teach within that blueprint. We don't have to adopt the framework. And we are ready. We are ready to go. And any obstruction or say, oh, we're going to lose money. Money does not, throwing money at an issue or we're going to lose money, that is not going to fix the problem. Okay? Let them cut money. I'll show you how to do more with less. We're ready to go. Thank you.